Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at this HyperDrive FX 20. So the HyperDrive FX series of drives was released in 1986 and included this 20 megabyte model. So as you can see, this is quite a large device for a hard drive. I'd guess there's probably a 5 1/4 inch hard drive in it, though I don't obviously know too much about these at this point. This was given to me locally by another Mac collector in town here, so happy to have it. So just a quick couple of notes about the box. It looks like it is a power or activity light on the front. It's got the logo. On the back we have standard power connection and the 2 SCSI ports, so you can chain it. So this being SCSI, this was released for the Macintosh Plus, as the 128 and 512K Macs didn't have SCSI. So I think you'd see this sitting next to your Mac Plus, and it does seem to have a bit of a handle so you can carry it, although it's not the best handle. On the bottom we've got rubber feet, a serial number with a barcode, and information about the drive itself. So HyperDrive FX 20 by General Computer Corporation in Cambridge, Massachusetts. 120 volts AC, 1 amp, 60 watts, and of course it's going to take the 50 to 60 hertz here that we have in the US on our power grid. So the collector I got this from said he powered it up and it sounded like it spun up fine, and he plugged it into his slightly more modern Mac. It wasn't a Mac Plus, and it caused his SCSI bus to freeze. So something might be going on with this. It might just be a dead drive, in which case, well, at the very least, we can put something a little more modern in and use it as an external blue SCSI, or even just a spinning drive storage to put in here. But yeah, let's see if we can't get this thing working though. It also came with the manuals. So we've got the main manual and the applications manual. So the main manual just talks about how to plug in SCSI, dimensions of the drive, how to install it on your Mac Plus. It talks about SCSI port, the SCSI terminator, I guess just how to use SCSI in general, what it looks like when it's on your computer, how folders work, talks about how the Apple HFS system works. Pretty cool. And then we have the applications manual, which talks about the applications that would have come on this one. Looks like it came with a backup application, and how to use that. There's also a supplemental guide here, the HyperDrive FX 20 update. It says there's a text file on your hard drive that contains the final release notes, and it suggests printing out a copy of that using print spooler. Looks like they have an image writer print spooler that was included with this. Problems, questions, and answers, laser spooler. Let's see what else is in this applications guide. It looks like it might just be the backup. There's a security application as well, so you can encrypt a document. So you can't have whole disk encryption, but you can encrypt a document with the password. I wonder what encryption technology they're using in this, because I bet we could probably break it in seconds today on something like a Mac Pro from 14 years ago. Anyway, let's get back to the bench, tear this thing apart, and see if we can't get it working. All right, so here we are on the bench. We can take a little bit of a closer look at the HyperDrive here. So really, the only thing of interest is the back of the drive for now. We have a SCSI terminator hooked up into here. So this terminator definitely has seen better days, but some bends in it. Rubber's kind of starting to loosen up, but probably works just fine. Set that off to the side. On the back of the drive itself, we've got obviously our 2 SCSI ports. They look to be in good shape. Then there's some something's happening here around the power switch and the power adapter. It's not rust. It almost looks like oxidation of some type. I don't know if that is going to indicate that there's a problem inside or if it's just external to the drive. If we can get that to come off, I guess pretty easily. Well, it's not getting it completely off, but I got some of it off. You can see it's quite dirty in the Q-tip. The whole case of this thing is pretty dirty, so we're going to want to clean it up regardless. But for now, let's take this thing apart. See what we're dealing with on the inside. So I noticed there are 2 screw holes here and here, and they look like they are standard Phillips screws. So ideally, if we pop these out, we can get into the internals of this drive and see what we have going on in here. Also, the person I got this from said he thought he had seen somewhere that this drive had actually been serviced at some point, repaired or something, so I'm not sure if that's the case or what that means, if that is the case. All right, so with those screws out, making some progress here, getting this guy apart. It looks like everything kind of just falls apart with those 2 screws off. All right, well, here is inside the case. It's a little dusty. We got our power supply here. It's fused. Quite a lot of things going on with that power supply. But I think we should be able to get the drive here. Looks like there's a couple of screws here. Is the power supply connected to that? It does look like it is, so this whole thing might just come out. We'll see what kind of drive we have inside. All right, and with that, can we take this drive apart? So I might need to take this out. I think it's all connected. Alright. So let's kind of put it back on its side here. And as expected, we have a 5 1/4 inch drive in there. This is a Seagate ST225N. I guess that's kind of surprising. I didn't know Seagate made SCSI drives in that form factor. I wonder if they had to use a custom board for a 225N. So I actually have a Seagate ST251 here, and this one is from a PC, and I had to use, a big old disk controller card because it's not IDE, it's an MFM drive. But look at these 2 drives side by side. They look pretty similar, the 251 and the 225N. So there's definitely some differences in the case. The vent here is different. This one has like an engraved thing for the warning, but I think they're probably pretty similar drives. The 251 is also a 20 megabyte hard drive. The 251 I have does still work. It's just exceptionally loud, so I don't use it for anything. But yeah, we got some dust in here. It's kind of like caked on dust. It's that dust that doesn't really come off. But we've got our power supply connected to it. This is the standard connection. And we can disconnect this. And then we can take the power supply out of the drive assembly. This goes in, that leaves us with just the drive here on its own. So I guess first thing I'd like to test is, does the drive spin up? So I'm going to grab a modern power supply and we'll give it 12 volts and see actually spins up. All right, so I've got a 12 volt, 2 amp power supply here. I think that should be enough to run this drive. So let's go ahead and plug the drive end in first. And then we'll plug it into power. So it did spin up, but I don't know if you heard that sound. That sounded like the head not making the sounds that it should make. So I don't know if it's stuck to one of the platters or if it's got some other issue going on. But I think probably at this point the next best thing is to try to plug it into a Mac to see if we can get it to do anything there. So let's grab a Mac Plus and we'll plug it in and see what happens. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is power up this drive. And again, it's making that sound. It's not a good sound. Let's go ahead and turn the Mac Plus then. It's got a little dusty sitting around. Sorry, Mac Plus. All right, so what you can't see is that when the screen on the Mac Plus went off, or whatever it is that it did, the red light on the HyperDrive turned on. Let's turn the Mac Plus off again. Well, the red light stayed on, but okay. All right, red light flashed. Yeah, it seems like this is causing the Mac Plus to not do much of anything. Let's go ahead and turn the drive off. Disconnect SCSI. Make sure the Mac Plus still actually works. It does. Alright, so as advertised, this drive does cause the SCSI bus to have issues, so I don't know if that's because the head is stuck or if because there is some other electronic fault on this drive, or both. Both could certainly be true. So I think the next thing we want to do is take this drive out and inspect the electronics on the bottom of it. So this drive has these rubber things it's connected to as a shock absorber. So it looks like you can just take a Phillips screwdriver and put it in here and you should be able to get the drive out. Alright. So that's our drive out, and then we've got this little connection up front for the LED that was causing it was turning red, causing things not to happen. All right, let's go ahead and shut the Mac down. Since we know it's good still, we didn't fry the Mac. I'm not feeling anything super warm. When I took it out originally, it did feel a little warm on the bottom, but it wasn't too bad. There was a bunch of dust on it. But I don't think that's going to cause any problems. I doubt that shorted anything out. So it looks like to get access to the component side of the board, we're going to have to take the board out, and that looks like it uses Torx screws. All right, so we got a handful of Torx screws here to come out. So I think it's just 3 screws here. All right, I'm certain there's going to be multiple connectors underneath. So we need to figure out how to disconnect in order to get the board out. figure out which way that would come off. All right, and that's that disconnected. So here we have our board. It looks pretty clean on this side. I don't see a lot of built up dust here. There's a little bit right here. Get that off. And given the age of this drive, it's actually fairly simple circuitry, which I think was one of the pluses of using SCSI in 1986. So there's a date on here, 20 July. I guess that's probably 20 July of 1986. It could be later, certainly not going to be earlier. Chips have some Adaptec, Seagate chips, some Toshiba chips. So I'm seeing the most recent date I see on here is 17th week of 1986. This chip, 16th week, 8616. 7th week of 86, 4th week of 86. So I think this drive was built in the early half of 1986, given these component dates. All right. A little more dust here. So I'm wondering if I can take the controller board off that MFM hard drive and slap that on here, because that drive works and this one doesn't. Probably not, I would guess, given the different model numbers and just the difference between SCSI and MFM and how those things work, but it is possible. So I think what I want to do next is leave the drive itself disconnected, plug in this board, power it up, plug it into the Mac Plus, and see if the Mac Plus still fails to do anything when it's plugged in. All right, so I've got my Mac Plus plugged in. I've got the controller board for the hard drive plugged into SCSI. It's terminated still. Let's go ahead and give that some power here. I don't know how we're going to know if it's got power because there's nothing connected to it to indicate that it would. All right, so it's probably powered up now, and it's probably freaking out. Little microprocessor somewhere is like, hey, there's no drive connected to me. What are you doing? Well, let's give the Mac Plus some power. Leave the disk out, I guess. Okay, we got this far last time. All right, so it's not crashing the system. Let's go ahead and boot. Right, so yeah, that booted up fine. We're powered up. We've got power going to the drive, more than likely. And the Mac booted no problem. So I think that means we need to take the drive. Go ahead and shut the Mac down. We'll unplug this. So let's take the drive, take it apart. And I think we'll probably find that the heads are stuck to something, or there's something stuck in there, but let's do that next. All right, so I took the 4 screws off. I've reconnected the board. And if we carefully lift the top off, I had to break the seal a little bit. There's this gasket that goes around the drive to prevent damage to it. But I took a look. The heads appear to be moving freely. I don't think there's anything there that's causing an issue. I didn't see any head crashes on the 3 platters that I could see, the 3 surfaces that I could see. There's 2 platters, 4 heads. So I can see the top and bottom of the top one and only the top of the bottom one. So there could be a head crash on the bottom one that I just can't see without taking these out. So everything seems to be okay. I want to plug it in and see just what exactly happens when we give it some power now. So we'll plug this in. And then we'll plug in the main power. Okay, so it seems like the heads aren't moving. It's trying to move the heads, but they are not actually moving. So that is the stepper motor here that would be having issues there. So that certainly could be one of a multitude of problems with this. But as noted, I can move this by hand, so something in the stepper motor is probably bad. So I think we'll reconnect the lid to prevent any more dust from getting on there. We'll resecure that. All right, and then we can take the board back off and take a look at our stepper motor here. See if there's anything we can do about that. It looks like there was a Seagate seal over this at one point, but I don't think it covered the hole, so I'm not sure how to lubricate this. Maybe we can take these off and see what's inside. Although I feel like this is just going to take the entire stepper motor out. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm losing hope quickly for a speedy resolution to this drive. I still think there's something electronically wrong with it as well, since it is causing the SCSI bus to basically just cause the computer to fail. What's that going to get us? Is that going to come off or no? I don't know that that's even going to allow anything to come off. Yeah, I think this is pulling the whole stepper assembly out. So that's probably not going to do anything for us. Let me look at my other drive. Let's see what it looks like on the bottom there. So it's got a different stepper. Looks similar, but definitely not quite the same. So I don't know if you can take this middle Torx out to lubricate it. Now the fact that it doesn't look like it's ever been sealed there in the middle makes me think that's not how you would lubricate it. Alright, so I think we've pretty much concluded that this drive is unfixable, at least by me. And having removed the cover, it's probably unfixable by anybody at this point. But I think there was probably two separate problems. Probably there was a problem with the controller board somewhere, and then there probably was an issue with the stepper motor as well, because it was just not spinning those drive heads where they needed to go, the read and write heads. So it's too bad, but what I think we'll do is we'll replace this drive with this 700 megabyte drive here that I've had for 30 years or so. Last I checked, it still worked. I'd used this as an external drive on my Performance 600 way back in the day, and I think it probably still works. I've pulled some stuff off it as recently as a couple years ago, and it was still fine. So we'll just go ahead and throw it in the enclosure, and we'll at least have something good come out of this. Alright, so my plan initially was to just take this 3.5 inch drive and kind of just hold it up to the top here, but I might as well go all the way and make it look nice. So I've ordered some drive adapters from Amazon. They're pretty cheap. So these will allow you to mount a 3.5 inch drive and a 5.5 inch bay. So you can find them on Amazon. There's lots of different variations of them, or at least there used to be. I think it's a little harder to find them these days because no one's really doing this kind of stuff anymore, but still out there, still making them. So we'll just take these out of the package here. And they come with all the screws we should need, hopefully. So we'll just mount this onto the side of our drive, like, I suppose like so. So that'll connect on like that, and you can access the holes through these slots. And then this, and this plug in the mounts that the bigger drive used. So just a small adapter. I think that's going to make things look much better. So happy to have it. The only other thing I wanted is obviously this thing has this LED for drive activity on here. It's hooked up to this wire here. And this Quantum ProDrive LT, I think, has the ability to output to an LED on these connectors here. So I wanted to test that out to see if that was in fact the case. So obviously this isn't going to plug into here, you know, being a much later drive, so we'll have to expose these wires and just make sure that's what those are actually doing. So we'll go ahead and cut the end of this off. I'll leave a little bit of room and save the connector because you never know. And then we can expose these wires here. As for which one is ground on this one versus positive, I have no idea. I'll just have to guess. I hope things are okay. See if I'm able to actually strip these with this tool. Alright, so those are stripped out. So for now I'm just going to hook them up to clip wires here. Alright, and then on the other side, so I'm going to give this drive power. We should get an activity light. I'm reasonably sure it's those two anyway, so should be fine. I don't see anything show up there, so we'll just let it boot up and we'll see if it recognizes the drive. Alright, so it does see the drive, and it says it needs repairs. Okay, well, we'll let it do that. We'll touch this here while it's doing it to see if we see any lights. Not seeing anything there. So go ahead and flip these around. There we go. So we can wire this up. That's going to be positive on the side closest to me. So I'm just going to make a little mark on this drive here, which is which. So positive here and negative here. All right, so now we need to wire up a little bit of an adapter to get from this to this. I think what I'm going to do is just solder to the wires that are going to this connector. I don't think I have any spare connectors of that size anywhere. I was looking a little bit ago. I've got something like this, which is the wrong size, and I didn't find anything close. So I think we'll use some wrap wire and just solder that, the board itself here. That should be pretty easy. So first let's do orange for positive. Probably need a little bit more solder on there first. And ideally we don't short these two pins together like I've just done, bridging them. All right. So the orange one first. So go ahead and tin that wire up a little bit. And we'll solder that on. All right, and we'll do the same for green, for ground. Then we'll solder that on. All right, and just tape these wires down so that they don't get pulled and yanked out of that connection there. A little more secure, a little more of a hack job, but hey, hack jobs are my specialty. All right, so the next thing we want to do is install the two rails on this drive here. I've kindly provided some screws to do that. Some of these will fit, some of them won't. Make sure we get the right side screw here first. We do. All right, great. And then we can now install the drive in to the enclosure using the rubber mounts that have been previously used. All right, and with our screws finally screwed in, we've got this nice shock absorbing for our drive. So let's go ahead and wire up our connections here. So green for ground. I'll do that one first. And then orange for positive. Alright, so we got some good connections here. Now, of course, we don't want these to touch anything inside the case or touch each other, so a little more electrical tape, because why not? Alright, that should keep things nice and electrically isolated, and we'll tuck that entire mess into the front here so that we never see it again. All right. Oh, it popped out. No, you just go in there and stay in there. We don't want to see you. All right. Now, one other thing, because the position of the drive moved, we needed to extend our SCSI cable a little bit as well. So I have a SCSI extender here, so we'll just use that. Put that guy in, drop that kind of underneath, and now we can reassemble the rest of our enclosure. So the first thing we want to do is slide the back panel back into its slot here. Take this and just kind of hang it off there. And then we will connect our SCSI cable. And we can plug our power in for our drive. All right, and then I think there's a couple of screws we need to put back in. I don't think these are super important screws to put them all in. Maybe we'll just do a couple. I don't remember which screws these were when I took all these out. All right, so before we get too far, let's go ahead and give it another test to make sure everything is still functional as expected. So we'll plug in our SCSI connection. We'll plug in our power. We'll turn the drive on. All right, red light's out. We'll turn our Mac Plus on, put our floppy back in. All right, so there we have our hard drive showing up. And when we open it, the activity light lights up, which is great. So it's got a System 753 folder on it. Let's go ahead and copy System Folder 6 over to it. All right, let's view by icon. We'll clean up the window. So let's make our System 753 unbootable. We will just drag the system suitcase out of it. So now it won't boot, and we'll go to our System Folder 6. And we'll drag our system out of it to the desktop, and then place it back in, which should bless this as a bootable system folder now. And you can see we have the icon, so that should be it. All right, well, let's shut down our Mac Plus one more time. All right, then we can put the enclosure back together. Make sure the back is all lined up. It's not. This is going to pull this out, I think, as we push it together. I believe like so. And And we have our 2 final screws to put back in. I think are these 2. Alright, so let's hit the power switch on our HyperDrive. We'll wait for the drive to spin up and for the light to turn off so we know it's ready. Alright, and then we'll fire up our Mac Plus. Alright, and there we go. We're booting off of our HyperDrive FX 20, which is now more of an FX 700 and much less of a 7 or much less of a 20. Alright, so we can see that we have our 700 megabyte drive here. So it's good to go. Everything's working. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the ST225N functional, which is really a shame because these were, you know, there's not many of these left at this point. Like I said, I do have the other Seagate drive that's an MFM drive, not SCSI, and I guess it'll have to do, but it's loud. This one wasn't as bad, but it's just unfortunate that these drives die over time, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I'm going to enjoy my new HyperDrive FX 700. It's going to be a lot more usable than a 20 meg drive, and it looks really, really nice sitting there next to my Mac Plus. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Hi guys! Make sure to like and subscribe, and watch more of our videos later.